Hey there, come on in. Welcome to Myriad Movie Mondays. I'm so glad you're here. I'd love it if you sat down and joined me for a bit. This week, we watched Oddity. What did you think? Had me in the first half, not gonna lie. Okay, bad meme quotes aside, I did really enjoy this movie for the first 2 acts, and then unfortunately, it lost me in the third. I will start with some of the things I enjoyed. It begins with a great opening that gives you just enough to reel you in while keeping everything ambiguous enough that you're not quite sure what's actually going on. The setting is great, very atmospheric and spooky, and once again, it does a lot with primarily a single set. Carolyn Bracken does a great job as both Darcy and Danny, but primarily Darcy throughout the movie. Something I really like about both of McCarthy's movies, and will be on the lookout for in Hokum, is a mix of both supernatural and mundane horror that interact but aren't the same thing. He introduces plot points that would be at home in murder mysteries and police procedurals, but then also introduces psychics and ghosts and curses that normally live in horror movies focused exclusively on those supernatural elements. But that's not what McCarthy does. The supernatural is important only so far as how the characters interact with it, motivated by their very human, very mundane motivations. In some ways, it's quite gothic. Throughout the first 2 acts of the movie, we get a bunch of great setups, visually, character-wise, relationally, and with the plot itself. The problem comes with the delivery, the payoff to these setups that is the third act. And this is something that Brandon Sanderson, a fantasy author and writing educator, if you're unfamiliar, talks about a lot with making satisfying stories. Throughout your story, you are making promises to the reader, or viewer in this case. These promises can be big or small. They can be promises of certain character arcs, certain plot points, even specific objects. And in regards to that last one, you may or may not have heard of something called a Chekhov's gun. The meaning has developed and changed over the years, but it speaks to the idea that if you include an item like a gun in your story, there must be a purpose, often because the gun is going to be fired at some point. If you include a gun in the first act of your story and it never comes back again, it can lead to dissatisfying storytelling. There are exceptions, of course, but that's the guiding principle. This is a fairly simple idea in theory, but can become very complicated in practice. In a story, you don't set up just one thing and deliver on it, most of the time, unless it's very contained or like a short story or short film. You tend to set up a lot of different things: character traits, arcs, relationships, plot points and themes, important items and settings, and even more. So, how do you juggle 50 different setups, keeping them all in the air and moving towards a satisfying conclusion? And what if some of those setups seem to require payoffs that are at odds with each other? Very quickly, it becomes clear that you have to prioritize, especially in movies, as they need very efficient storytelling to get everything across in around 2 hours. The writer and director need to ask themselves, what are the most important promises I've made? Then, they need to fulfill at least those most important ones. And after they've made sure to do that, they can move on to the smaller ones, the less important ones. The third act of Oddity was disappointing for me because it felt as though some promises weren't kept at all, and many were prioritized very differently than the import seemingly given to their setups earlier in the movie. Darcy's arc is one of revenge, one that we've seen many times. She is shown to be cold, calculating, even manipulative to extract that revenge. But suddenly, in the third act, she is none of these things, with a terrible plan that doesn't really make any sense, and she's the one who's being manipulated. The most important item in the whole movie is the wooden mannequin. It's the visual focal point. It's set up to be the single most impactful object in the story, and you wait the whole movie to see what it's going to do, and then it does almost nothing. Finally, the biggest villain in the whole movie doesn't even get a real comeuppance in the movie itself. It is implied at the very end that he will get his comeuppance, but I found it very dissatisfying, and it hinges on a decision he could have just not made. Instead, the things we get payoffs for are the trap door and the hotel call bell, the former of which I would say was done well, actually, and the latter done poorly, but both of them seemingly much less important than those other examples. So, there are a few examples of what I'm talking about, and there are more I could discuss, but this video is already starting to run a bit long, so I'm gonna leave it there. Besides, I want to hear what you think. Did you feel the same as me, or did you like how the movie handled its setups and payoffs? Is there a different movie you think is either very good or very bad example of setups and payoffs? Let me know in the comments or make your own video. I'd love to see it. Next up, I'm taking a week off, but I will be back soon with more movies to watch and discuss. See you then.